Welcome to the Kawartha Small Business Podcast, where we believe the Kawarthas can be the most thriving region in Canada for small business. I am Brian Rump from Profit Coach.
And I'm Matt Garrity of Matty G Digital.
All right, Kawartha Small Business Podcast. We are diving right into it today, Matt, and we're going to talk about the labor shortage because everyone knows that the kids these days just don't want to work anymore.
They just want to bang on the drum all day.
They just want to bang on the drum all day. No one knows how to work. They don't want to work. What's the other one I hear? The government is just paying people to sit at home all day. So we're going to break down the labor shortage. I think there are some absolutely bogus arguments in this conversation. But I also think there are some valid points as well. And we're going to get into it. So what do you think?
I'm a little bit more, I think, direct with how I feel on things. You'll give a much more eloquent answer. I think the whole labor shortage thing is kind of bogus. I think it's a little bit of everything that you are hearing. I think that there are people that have been receiving CERB for a number of months now. And
CERB ended about a year ago, which most people refuse to acknowledge, but
and
CERB is done.
yeah, and those payments that people were receiving, and now it's not happening anymore, and people don't want to go back to crappy jobs and jobs that are, and this is not nothing, but it's doing nothing other than providing them a paycheck. These jobs that they're not really providing them a ton of experience that's going to get them further ahead financially or in any sort of other realm. I don't. I think it's honestly probably a reckoning of employees that are no longer willing to work crappy jobs is what's happening for crappy pay.
Yeah, I think that's to me one of the number one things, and the number one thing that comes out of it for small businesses is you need to be creating a good work environment with good work that matches what your employees want as part of their career or their career development. Um, I call it we're in the middle of like a great reset. I think people have decided, as you noticed, they don't want to work crappy jobs that they hate. When they were off, I think people realize that, hey, my employer's not loyal to me. Like when things go rough, I got, laid off immediately and went from X wage down to CERB. I think people also learned what they sort of can survive on. Like, people suddenly were at home with their families a lot more. They weren't maybe spending money. They had a chance to reset some of their priorities, some of their habits. So when it comes time to re enter the workforce, they're just looking for something different as well.
You said the Great Reset. Are you one of the corporate elites in hiding?
Maybe. I wish I would like to be. I think I don't know that I love that term, but I think there's going to be a lot of impacts over the next few years, and there will be times where we are studying the pandemic impact on business, like in universities. I think a lot of businesses that weren't going well, maybe that should have shut down before COVID, got a bit of a lifeline with some of
Yeah.
the programs that were there. So there was the SEBA, the business loan that was an emergency. There's the wage subsidy. There's a guy on Twitter, a Canadian economist, who has a paper coming out basically showing what a terrible policy the emergency wage subsidy was, which is fascinating. And it's just held on a lot of businesses from closing down that should have closed down. And then I think other businesses have used it to really strengthen themselves and become better. And then mixed in with that, you have employees who just might have moved. Without students in some places, there's not the same mobility maybe of young people. People are living in different spots. They're deciding what types of work they want to do, and um, the nature of that work and the wages. They're being more selective. So it's just given everyone that sort of reset to be able to, reconsider the part-time jobs that they do or the full-time jobs they do.
Yeah, most of the stuff from a shortage perspective that you hear from people is usually the like restaurants, hospitality, retail, and usually like labor type jobs. Those jobs suck. No one wants to work them really. Those normally
Well,
are. Sorry, I'll let you correct me.
I don't know that I like saying that, but I think it dismisses there is a group of people who legitimately like doing things, working with their hands. They like, people like cooking, they like doing those things. But I think what this allows is them to choose the type of work that they want. And now they have more choice. So, um, you know, I know a friend who actually it, took a job doing sort of a labor job that other people would say, oh, this sucks. But the conditions were so good. She's like, you know what? I love this job and it's part time and I'm going to, do it as part of the, other things that I do. But people don't want to do jobs they don't like. So if
Yeah.
your environment's toxic, yeah, no one wants to wash dishes in a toxic environment where, the bro chef is sexually harassing you all the time. Right. So,
Yeah, I guess when I say they suck, generally speaking, they're more challenging. They're harder. People get beat down more in them. Like you said, I don't think too many people generally are like excited to be washing dishes all the time. It's usually they're being forced into having to do that. And there's not much growth within that role or within too much experience. Like you're not walking out of that job like, I washed dishes for the last 300 straight days. I'm going to get a big corporate job or a six-figure salary type of thing. I don't know how much literal professional growth there are out of those type of jobs, though.
yeah, and I think that's the interesting thing to talk about, and I think it's part of the solution as well, which is, yeah, nobody wants to wash dishes, and it's kind of neat that we're coming upon washing dishes as the thing we're focusing on. Um, I washed dishes as my first job. There was parts of it I liked, parts I didn't. I think it's a great first job helping you out, like learning how to show up on time, how to work away at stuff, how a kitchen operates. They're great for, if you want to work in fine dining.
Mm.
Oftentimes you start as a dishwasher. So you go to culinary school and then you might get a job at, your dream restaurant washing dishes and getting used to how the kitchen works, how it flows, and then you work your way up from there. So it's a path somewhere. But in that case, it's offering that career path or that entry into another job that you want. But when you hit a time where there is a labor shortage, where before someone would just take that job washing dishes because it was all that was available, now they have just so much more choice of places to work. So they're going to choose the activities or the types of jobs that they just are more fulfilling or they want to do, or that leads them to, a career path that might be more skilled and pay better long term.
Yeah, and I just hate the term labor shortage in this too. I feel like it's phony. I think there's a lot of people out there that can work, want to work. They just don't want to do a lot of these jobs. And there's nothing wrong with that. And it's not a shortage of labor. It's something else. I don't know what to call it.
Yeah, I think it's neat. And I think in some areas there is a legit shortage of just number of people who are out of work. to choose from. And there's some structural things to that. I know, in Lindsay, for example, I don't know if it's like this still now, but a few months ago I went by KFC and like they were only open one shift a day because they don't have enough people. But when you don't have something like Fleming College open for in-person classes, and if you're always hiring students, then if there's no classes and the students aren't moving to town, then you don't have that base. So there could legitimately be sort of that structural shortage for that type of role. But a lot of people, I think, use it as an excuse, and they're just not, either marketing their job, they're not finding the right people, they're not offering, you know, good quality, full time work with good working conditions.
I would love to hear input, feedback, insight from people that are having a hard time getting resumes, to hear like how are they asking for those applicants? Like how are they trying to find people? I'd be fascinated to hear those answers and dig deeper into that conversation.
Yeah, that's fascinating because you didn't always even need to, right?
Sure.
And I think there's some businesses that, so like if we, the KFC, we don't want to get sued by KFC. We'll take some free double downs or whatever they're called. But
Or your
the
local KFC.
yeah, from the support the local KFC. But a place like that that's an established brand, if you rely on students, I know people who have worked there and they, you go to a new town for college and it's like, hey, I worked at KFC in high school. I just walk into this one, hand them my resume, probably get a job. So you're probably not used to looking for people or having to recruit because they just show up at your door and you can select from, who the applicants are. And now all of a sudden that's not happening. So, people aren't hunting for jobs. There is more available. Again, with the reset, people have just moved and changed. So it's also a good opportunity, if you were off for a long time and you were working, say in fast food and you're like, hey, I want to move to this other type of hospitality. It's that you had that opportunity to go do that and you've probably changed jobs. So it creates, just a brand new mix of things.
Yeah. The only experience I've had with this that I can speak to, and I suspect it's happening in other service businesses and just in other industries in general, is there's people being way more critical about the amount and type of work that they're taking. So it used to just be gimme, 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 I will take, I am greedy like everybody else. Not even I need to make ends meet. It's like just more and more and more. But there are more and more conversation I'm having with people where I'm having to more so ask them, do you want this? Do you still want to be doing this thing? Or are you content with everything that you have? People are way more critical of their own time, where they're going with things, personal time, like kids, family. Not even that, just in general, like, I want to do more of this. I, for the last probably year, have been watching a movie or TV show every single night after work for like an hour, and then I go to bed once my kids are in bed. I don't want anything to disrupt that. I get so irritated when something disrupts that.
Yeah.
So someone like, and people are like, hey, do you want to get together? Do you want to go do this? Like me and you saw movies a couple Tuesdays ago. I'm always like, I got to be super critical about this decision. Like, I really want to disrupt what I'm really happy doing to do something else. That I don't know how that affects people that don't have any work. And like, I don't know where they're getting their income. That's a completely different story. That's what I would be curious about. But people that have something going on, they seem like their priorities are shifting, which I'm all for.
Yeah, and I think that's where the opportunity for small business is to get better at being more clear with expectations. I think what you're finding, and I've heard this a few times, when people complain about the labor shortage and I dig in a bit, sometimes it's like, oh, well, I phoned someone to come into work and they just said no. Whereas in the past, people would jump all over that. So it's like
Yeah.
watching your movie. Maybe in the past, if someone was like, hey, can you do this project tonight? You'd be like, all right, sure, I'll take on this extra work. But now you're like, no, I'm setting myself boundaries and predictability. There's also, COVID had a massive impact on mental health.
Yeah.
So there's people who are like, yeah, I'm not going into overworking myself because I'm just trying to get back to normal. So if you're a business who can't offer predictability and you can't offer a living wage, then of course you're going to have a labor shortage because there's not a lineup of people who are so desperate for work they'll take whatever they can get. They want to work in a good place. There's people who love working in. We talk about hospitality a bit as like where we hear a lot of the complaints, but there's always going to be people who like and want to work in hospitality, but they like to work in good places that are organized, where they might have the opportunity to get better tips. They don't want to wait around for the phone to ring to take short shifts here and there.
Yeah.
So you have to get better at organizing your business so that you can offer something that's predictable and meaningful for them to come work.
Yeah, it's not a labor shortage. It's a no one wants to work for you problem. And
Yeah,
like, how do we as business owners fix problems? We're not always going to fix them right away, maybe never in certain cases, but there's ways to address that. So, how, like you said, how do we make it better for people to work for us? Like, what can we
yeah,
offer them? Is it better pay, better salaries, better hours, better conditions, better benefits? I hate the word benefits. I think it's stupid, and we can talk about that later. But like better things that make it an enjoyable place to work. If you're a restaurant, like I don't know how restaurants work. I've never worked there. I'm sure people will be upset at me for that, but like I've worked like challenging jobs and laborious jobs before. Never worked in a restaurant, but generally speaking, like there needs to be better. I don't even want to say the word incentive because like that seems like cheap. Also, it's mostly just about like finding ways to make your work environment better for the people that are there.
yeah. So this will surprise longtime listeners of the show, but this is a marketing problem. And when we talk about story brand, people want to live in a story where they're the hero. They want meaningful work. So you want to build a business that people want to work at and be part of. If I'm going to be washing dishes, do I want to wash dishes, in a place where everyone's yelling at me and the food's terrible? Or do you want to be washing dishes in like a, you know, kitchen where everyone's sort of having fun, working hard and creating, a great time for people who are working there or who are the customers of there. And you're part of that story. If you're at a, serving up coffee at a coffee shop, it's not fun to just be cranking out cheap coffee as fast as you can all day. But if you're making neat drinks and, at a nice place in a nice environment, like that's a fun place to work. You talk to people who are long time, career servers, bartenders, like they seek out and they want to work in like the best environments for them and they can make a good living at it. They don't want to just be working at a place that's not fun. So you need to create that environment with a good business. And the only way you're going to have the money to pay, people properly is charging appropriately and having a product that people want to pay for. And it kind of takes care of itself.
I think it's a leadership problem too. Like not you being a bad boss, you being a bad manager, but like an actual leader. And this is like certainly a different podcast conversation about leadership. But from that perspective, people need to feel appreciated. And as silly as that sounds, and people will roll their eyes and like, well, back in my day, like, well, back in your day, there was horse and buggy also, and things have advanced. So let's get past that, man. But like, it's a leadership problem with how we treat the people that work for us. I don't want to like go into detail on how I work with a lot of the contractors that I do, because I don't want to just be here trying to pat myself on the back. But I'm trying to be very careful with how I say all this. I'm like, I want to say laser focused on how I work with and treat the contractors that are a part of the businesses that I own. I insist on treating them like colleagues. I am not their boss. I'm not their manager. I don't specifically tell them what to be doing. I give them like, hey, here's what my methodology on things, and I've hired you because you're good or you have capabilities, and you go do what you need to do. And I let them run. I don't know if they like working with me. I think that they do. I would guess that they do. Most of them have stuck around for a real long time. And this is probably really against what most people tell you. I try to be friends with all of them too, because I truly feel as if that's the best way to get stuff out of people. Also, like if I didn't want to be friends with them and chat with them like pretty casually, pretty regularly, do I really want to work with that person and vice versa? Probably not, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a really fair way of looking at it. People want to be led. There's a value proposition there of like, when you work with me, here's what it's going to be like. Here's what you're going to learn. Here's the type of work you're going to do. So, that makes sense, and people want to work in an environment like that. I think you're right about the leadership element. If you're going to own a business, you have to be leading it somewhere, and people want to be part of that story. Even if it's the menial work and it's someone's first job, like you learn a lot of lessons. You talk to a lot of people, and the things they learned in their first job sort of carry with them throughout their career. So you want to be that learning environment where people come and learn, how to work, how to do things, business lessons. So you want to be, friendly, pleasant to work with. People aren't lining up to do your work for you just because. The other thing is, and I joked about it a lot, is if you want to be overworked and underpaid, there's a lot of choices out there for you right now. So again, be the business that, has those better conditions, has the ability to, help you grow.
It's a good point. Like, you don't remember any of the reasons why you had a bad boss. It's usually like you're just name calling. You're like, oh, that boss was terrible. He was a dick. He was a jerk. It's really actually usually difficult to come up with some tangible reasons why you didn't like their management style. But when you have good bosses, you have like mentors, and you remember those specific stories of how they helped you and shaped you, and you can see it usually every day in how you are acting, in every meeting, every call at least, where you can sit back and think about legitimate things that your mentor has helped you do along the way. Those are the people that you remember, not the boss that didn't value you and treated you like a number or something like that.
Yeah. And I think no matter what your business is, no matter what your price point, no matter what your wage is, you can offer that in some way. Not every business can afford higher wages. So it's easy to say, oh, just pay more. Sometimes you can, but if you're competing on cost, if you have that lower wage, then you can be a mentor. Or you say, hey, I'm going to be the best at hiring students for their first job, and they're only going to work here for a year because they're going to get sick of, washing dishes or cleaning floors. But they're going to know how to do that so that that's going to be a stepping stone for them to get that next job that is a little bit better at, maybe someone who pays a little bit more. So you help create that pipeline. And I think that applies in some ways to every industry, right? You can have different roles at different price points and different conditions. But you have to be that leader mentor and have a business that's just fun to work at.
Yeah, and I'm thinking about some examples lately of people that I've heard talking about having difficulty hiring people or finding people. I've had some people say, usually with like a point of pride, like we're tough on our employees. Like, and we ask a lot of them out of the gate. And I want to start asking them why. Why would you do that? Why can you not just take a different approach? Like, it's not 40 years ago. Tough love is not really a thing anymore. People probably, if you think back on like any conversation you've had with someone that complained about their boss, they've said that they don't feel appreciated. It's so easy to make someone feel appreciated with like a sentence every once in a while. And again, I don't want to get into details, but I very strategically do, and I might sound like a jerk because I strategically do these things, but it's very purposeful. But also, like it's just not that hard to be a good leader
Yeah.
and appreciate people and like make the people's job easier. I guess maybe what I'm trying to say in a roundabout way now is like owners, managers, bosses, it's not our responsibility to hire people to make our jobs easier. We should be hiring these people and making their jobs easier. Like we don't need fancy training programs and all this stuff. It's just like, how can we make their life easier while they're working here? They're going to be more successful. They're going to excel. They're going to thrive in those roles if you actually
Yeah.
give them tools to be appreciated and to be successful.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and it should be what you want to do, because that's also how you build a profitable business is with great people. And people aren't just going to come in and magically do what you want for cheap. I use the term wishonomics a lot, and that's where people like wish something would work completely in the opposite of the way like sort of economic rules do. And that has to do with, I've met lots of people who they just want someone who can basically run their business for them and do it all and charge them minimum wage and work part time. And that just isn't available. It doesn't work. And in this environment, we're even more so in a place where people aren't desperate for work. So they're not going to show up and put up with your abuse or being crazy tough on them in their first little bit because they have other choices. So if you've been running your business based on being a bully, based on that power dynamic, then your days are probably numbered, and you should, rethink it. But if you want to be a leader, be better, I think there's huge opportunity to do that and to provide that meaningful work. One of my last thoughts is on the kids these days. I remember being at a manufacturing event, and this old guy got up and he said his grandfather said that about him.
Yeah.
Right? He's like, I don't buy it. My grandpa, when I started working in 1950s, whatever, he was like, these kids today don't know how to work. I've read the same stuff about, beginning of World War II. They were worried about the condition of the army because the young kids just didn't know how to work. And look what they did. Same with World War One. It was the exact same conversation. These people are young, too soft, don't know how to work. And we look at these past generations as being great. And it's really the same cycle. So if you're thinking, kids these days don't know how to work, they just work differently. But in so many ways, they probably are working harder than you did. And if you take that attitude and try to capture that energy, you'll probably be more successful.
Yeah, like things change. This is a big thing with me personally that drives me crazy. And like, things change. People 30 years ago worked differently. It's not a bad thing. Of course, like hope to goodness things are different and more evolved than 30 years ago. So if you thought that you worked really hard 30 years ago, the world's changed, dude. Start to figure that out. Give people some leeway and just start thinking about how you can better adapt and work in today's environment. It's not on them to change how they work for you. It's you need to adapt to today's world.
Awesome. All right. Well, if you are experiencing a labor shortage, if you want to argue with us, if you want to, learn how you could turn your business into a place that people want to work at, and you don't have to deal with these problems, let us know. We want to work with you. You can check us out at kawarthasmallbusinesspodcast.ca. See how we can help you start, grow, or recharge your business. Or you can send us an email to set it up at kawarthasmallbusinesspodcast.ca.